Thank you very much. Hello. We heard about fashion industry and its possibilities and technology solution. Don't complain, just do it, right? But then also it's like, so, you know, with a journey in the past, but also like an excitement for the future and like how aesthetic is so important in all of that. And now, you know, that puts me in a perfect situation to actually try to put it together. In an ideal situation, a functional fashion industry would elevate and support fashion and the leap of design and inspiration. And we know the current situation, this is like also why we need to have awards like this, it's not like that. It's actually, it feels the opposite. It's like if you try to do things responsible, the right way, you get stopped and blocked. And all of that is in astrophysics we call an event horizon, because the timing, so you might feel like everything is becoming very concentrated, very fast, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And we've seen it in the tariffs on the US, it's like that we will witness a mass extinction of small businesses. So all of that is now concentrated, coming together. An event horizon is a occurrence, is like when you get too close to a black hole, then doesn't matter how much energy and how much activity you put in, you will get pulled in. And I think that's like the best way to describe what actually is going on right now. But there's a reason for it. I always get asked, is like, why? And why is it happening now? And the answer is, it started a long, long, long time ago. So let me take you on a journey. One of the best fashion textile reports out there at the moment are from the European Environmental Agency. It's for free, look at it. It's the EEA. And when you look at all of the big research out there, you always see it's like there is a reference to like in the early 2000s. Since then, production has quadrupled, waste has quadrupled. And it happened because in 2005, the World Trade Organization took the cap off textile production. That meant is under the umbrella and the mindset of democratizing fashion in 2005, was that everybody can produce as much fashion as much as they want, in every country they want. That was the intention. We also, in politics, we call it peace by trade. Germany worked really out well with Russia, right? In textiles, it was especially with China. We're in a current situation where in Europe, 52% of our clothing textiles, 52% comes from outside Europe. Top one is China, number two is Bangladesh, number three is Turkey. So all of that kind of started to catapult since 2005 because the cap was taken off. In 2014, European Parliament, that's the politicians, European Commission is bureaucrats. Don't let me talk about this, I can do this for 10 hours. In 2014 already was a discussion, it's like we have to start reshoring in Europe. We have outsourced all of our production, it's called capitalism and globalism in combination, because it was cheaper, because the real price wasn't taken in account. We will talk about human rights, it's about sustainability. There hasn't been a price tag put on that. So it appears to be cheaper. But already it started back in the day, especially in Europe, it's coal, steel, automotive, chemicals, and farming. I was like, okay, we need to bring manufacturing back. So like that initiative on political level already happened, things got in place. When you talk with other industries, with other industry associations, they're like, yeah, we've been preparing for this since 15 years. Then for us, like, why the F should we care, right? Well, in 2019, culture and creative industries, fashion is included, got acknowledged by the European government as an actual industry. Or it's the industrial ecosystem. The European Union defined itself into 13 ecosystems, industry ecosystem. And number 14 for the first time ever, was in 2019. It just took around 15 years that actually got acknowledged. It was culture, creative industries, and it kind of like everything got thrown in there. Gaming, architecture, fine arts, publishing, music, filmmaking and fashion, advertisement also. So it kind of like everything which we haven't had put into the other industries got like squeezed into this. But the important thing was like all of a sudden, because like if you're in a political and in a policy framework, it's like you need to be you need to be seen. If you want to be protected, you need to be acknowledged. If you want to have power, you need to get the microphone. But it was really important is also like to acknowledge that the creative arts are an industry. And I remember like one of the European researchers who worked on it is like, yeah, so you've been making quite a lot of money, right? We never realized that, there's so many jobs. And then the issue actually like we realized is that because the industry is like not very official, we know that creative industries, like every time when you book like, a DJ or designer or something like that, it's like we know that the official numbers of money flows in jobs doesn't reflect what the reality actually is. And that's why it's so important. It's like we need to be able to show the impact of arts and culture in Europe to the economy, to our prosperity, to our well-being, so we can get protected. And we saw what happened in COVID. Who got bailed out? Automotives, aeroplanes, and our music venues got shut down. So, when you're in a system, you have duties, but you also have the right to be protected. And that mechanically started in 2019. For fashion especially, fashion being a part of culture, creative industries, fashion got especially in focus in the context of the European Green Deal. What the fuck is that? So, the European Green Deal was launched by then the new European government, Ursula von der Leyen, with a concept is like, we want the European Green Deal because we want to become, we as Europe, we want to become the green champion in the world. But it also meant it's like, this is competitive. It's like, okay, when we are the best at something, that means we can leap ahead. And also sustainability was understood in the context of a single market, in the context of like, increasing the profit margin because we are reducing waste. It was a concept to unite Europe under sustainability and as a result having prosperity. And then what happened? And then the war came. And all of the excitement of the European Green Deal also like made realize is like, but we are so dependent on outside manufacturing and supply chains. When it really comes down to that we have to sustain and support ourselves in a time of war, we can't. And then all of a sudden, what started to trickle down is like, yeah, we talked about reshoring. We have industries who already started to do that. If you talk with like pharmaceutical companies, they're like, yeah, we started around 10 years ago bringing back, I saw the latest figures in Austria, for instance. We have started to bring back our medical production a long time ago. And now all of those industries starting now to leap a lot, because they prepare. It also explains why it feels like for fashion industry, why it seems so hard to transit, is because simply hasn't been prepared. It kind of feels like, well, it's like the new kid on the school in the schoolroom. It's like, okay, you haven't done your homework. Well, also fair enough, we haven't given you homework yet because we haven't acknowledged you. So it's not like blame game. They're also like two to tango. It's like, okay. From the European Commission side is under the revision of the Green Deal, it's like, well, let's look at the number. Ooh, fashion industry, what the? It's like, how much water? Human rights violations? Are you effing? So imagine that you had like in the European Commission who was very much like we are steel, we are coal, we are automotive, we are chemicals, we are research, we are tech, because everything fits in a spreadsheet, and then something like, and quote, what the F are we supposed to do with these creatives? And it was, see it from the other side, is like the formal training they had, the deliveries they had. It was very much research and development and innovation was very technical focused. It was very research focused, very academic. And creatives was just something we had because it's so difficult to put it in bottles. It's so difficult to say, it's like, hey, if you increase culture creative activities in a city, you reduce CO2 footprint. We know that's for real, but you can't really have the proof for that. And that is the issue. So we are now in a process kind of retrofitting where in all of the support programs from the European Commission, in all of the research papers, since 2019, we are in a retrofitting phase. So that means all of the institutions now adding on culture creative initiatives. One of them, if you're also like, where the F is the money, we need support, is actually from the EIT, the European Institute for Technology and Innovation. Yeah, no culture scene. So they have been established 15 years ago, but 3 years ago, it was announced to have the first innovation agency for culture creative industries called the Culture Creative Kick. Yes, we have a lot of lengthy names and abbreviations. And they are now going into action, not only for fashion, but fashion is a focus. So please look for the Culture Creative Kick. They have funding for individual artists, for groups, for small, medium-sized enterprises. And there's also a program called out there Creative Europe. Less complicated applications. One thing though, usually in applications like this, you have to collaborate with other companies because that's how we do it in Europe, collaborate. So, long story short, the state of the union, what we have right now is that we had a merge of the Green Deal and the industrial plan because we realized is that in order to have a green transition, we have to take the reality of the industry in consideration, aka lobbyism groups. Thank you very much. Well done. And then now, especially with the re-elected new European government, we now have something called the competitive compass. The competitive compass is a mix of the Green Industrial Deal and a new defense program. So all of this is now in action. It's not to be stopped and it won't go away. It actually will become even more reinforced because remember we started a journey on sustainability in a Green Deal for prosperity to become the green champion in the world. Realizing in the context of nearshoring is that, and facing war is that having an independent supply chain, being able to produce things on our own, from food to clothes, is now something called strategic autonomy. So it just went 5 levels up. Now we are talking defense. Now we are talking infrastructure. We shipped it out, and especially also with the tariffs coming, it's like, okay, we always thought America is our friend. It's not. We are on our own. So that also means is like that the European countries are far more inward-looking. They're collaborating. I mean, like see, like the French and the Germans are now collaborating on making tanks. I mean, that is historic. So, again, for industries who have been acknowledged as an industry by the European Union for a very long time, this is normal. They all know about it. They're all prepared for that. So REACH, chemicals, Mercosur, trade agreement with Brazil and Argentina, eco-design for sustainability products regulations. Anybody knows about that? We will talk twice. Yes, okay. We can make this, put this in a game. Waste shipment regulation. So it basically means it's like that the European countries are forbidden to ship textile waste outside of Europe since early this year. Also, the EU Waste Framework Directive amendment is especially for food and for textiles. Every European country and city has to collect textiles separately. Remember when we got the Bioabfall, like the brown bin for compost, stuff like that? It's the same thing. My bet is on purple, by the way. So we will get like a purple bin for textiles. Question is like, how do we deal with all of that? Well, I even haven't finished yet, because I mean, like, this is just the politics stuff. On top of that, the reality in which we are sitting is like that war. I think like I have talked about it sufficiently. Politics. Anyone looking what's happening in Bangladesh at the moment, and India and Pakistan? If you're in fashion and textile, you should know about that, right? So India blocked shipment from Bangladesh. Bangladesh is siding with Pakistan. Pakistan and India are fighting. Bangladesh is siding with China, right? So who is our second biggest importer for textiles in Europe? Bangladesh, right? So and also 94% of the entire economy in Bangladesh is completely dependent on textiles. So this is politics. Again, this is like a framework which has to happen, which is happening just to be on the other side of the creative bit. It's completely interlinked. We need to be aware of that, and we need to be active of that. Again, in every other industry, this is daily business. You are involved in politics, you're aware of Mercosur, you're aware of the EU guidelines. When you talk with a packaging designer these days, they know exactly about it's like, hey, it's like how much measurement of wood we have to in plastic, we have to get in, what kind of shape we have to design it to make it recyclable. I'm especially holding universities and education institutions in account. It's like that is spaces by now. I'm advocating for a policy department. Yes, at the same time, also economy, you might have seen also is like, yes, you know, it's really difficult to think about a change of command, a change of innovation in investment when your current industry goes basically down the drain. I mean, LVMH just announced they just like set off 10% of their staff. Burberry is going down. Rebecca Minkoff on Bloomberg this morning just said it's like we will get killed through the tariffs. We have no chance to survive. And then at the same time, if that's not enough, is fashion is also is facing also competition. Look in other industries, Airbnb, Uber, Spotify. That's what was all people who came outside the industry with digital tools and annihilated the current industry. And this is exactly what's going to happen with fashion. It's like, because a great lack of digitalization, no infrastructure, I tell you, there are outside industries partners looking at the fashion industry. Yum, 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 yum. You are big and you're so inefficient and you're so slow and we can do it better. And in a really weird way, Shein is an example for that. Because Shein is not a fashion company, it's a tech company. It has zero overproduction, it's completely digitized, and it's fucking fast. And it knows policies because it has jumped in shipment gaps. It is packaging shipment exactly in the gaps where you don't have to report it. And it's gone from 0 to hero. What are we facing? I know I hear like digital product passport in compliance and like whatsoever, and whatever word you hear and whatever, you know, we starting with Green Deal and Industrial Deal and like Green Compass and whatsoever, as an absolute baseline, if it matters in sustainability or in defense, when you create a product, you need to know all of the components, the materials of all of the components, from where those components come from, the place of assembly, how you treat it, wash it in case of fashion, how to repair it and how to recycle it. That is the new normal. It's standard. That's where we're going to. And you need to prove it. Talk with the other industries. The reason why this is coming is because it has been agreed with industries who've been acknowledged before. And now you just got thrown in and you just have to jump on the bandwagon. It's not fair, no, but also this was coming. It's also called smart business. This is normal, right? Look in the room here. I can go to the camera manufacturer and say, like, tell me exactly where all of those components of this camera come from. Who made it, from which, down to the mine of the materials. I can't do that with a single piece of clothing. Guaranteed. Can you really guarantee me that this has been in Spain? Can you really guarantee me that none of your clothes have been touched by human rights violation? You can't. It's completely outrageous. I spent a lot of time with manufacturers, and I said, like, one of the things, but there is such a volatility in the market. It goes like up and down. You can't plan. Every season is like you're so close to bankruptcy all the time. And the reason is that there's no planning, there is no you don't know what's coming, where is what in stock, when something breaks, where you can go. Highly recommend to get inspiration from electronic consumer goods. Because and this is I'm not talking about the future, I'm talking like the reality for like a couple of decades in other industries, is the absolute possibility for prosperity is like if you have completely transparent digital track and trace supply chain, you can plan ahead. You can map where your resources are. You know who touched what, and you can plan for it. Again, Shein is doing exactly that, right? The whole idea of the European EU legislations is to enable you and force you, okay, to go exactly that way. We need to have a unified system, because when we agree to a standard way on how to do things, it makes us faster, because we have less waste and we have a higher profit margin. In Europe, we call it the joint market. One market in Europe, right? So that means all of 27, we used to be 28, remember? Have to agree that this is the way on how we do it. And the result is, especially when you're participating very early in the process, that means you're ahead of the game. In the tech industry, it's various early adopters, right? Okay, you have to go through the pain, but you have to knowledge what will come. That will give you a competitive advantage. What should be done? What do we need? Well, it's if you look into back in the good old days, as we romantically say, is that, we used to have manufacturing villages or valleys, right? Where, especially if you go to regions in Portugal or Poland, one of the last hubs of really productions is, you have the entire ecosystem very close by. And this is again, we are now in a time where we're not only talking about sustainability, we're talking about defense and strategic autonomy. So that will become a very hard push, is that we need to build local ecosystems again. And it starts with waste pickup, with waste removal, with waste recycling. We need to have repair shops, we need to have fashion labs, we need to have shops around it. So it's a whole ecosystem. So the cycles are far more local, but they need to be coordinated and ideally European standardized. That is the whole reason why Europe is setting up a framework. Because you might have noticed, it gives you a guidance. It doesn't tell you exactly what you have to do. It's very annoying for the textile waste removal, but it's called democracy. It's we are giving you a guideline, the way, because waste removal is totally different in Finland than it is in Sweden and in Germany or Italy, right? So it's we all agree to this is happening, the way how you do it is up to your country. It's, consensus. If you would prefer to be told exactly what's happening, that's called dictatorship. Everything comes with a price. So, in the end of the day, what we need is a new old infrastructure. Simple as that. And when we talk about infrastructure, then of course it can't just come from a private industry. Of course, it is not expected from single designers or fashion manufacturers to do this. When we talk infrastructure, especially in Europe, it's a public-private venture. We're talking about fundamentals of like electricity, internet, streets, right? Infrastructure. And that requires collaboration, but it also requires an understanding. As a little example is how other industries are doing it. Did you know 75% of the online payments are processed by Visa and MasterCard in Europe? 75%. That makes us totally dependent on American payment systems. In the context of strategic autonomy is there are now a European umbrella organization with banks who introduced a new payment system. It's called Vero. Have you heard about that? Right? So it's like Germany, Belgium, Luxembourg, Spain. They're testing it. It will get mapped out. So that is a really good example how you handle it. You have umbrella organizations who come together, who agree. It's like, okay, we need to have a unified system. And we need to negotiate between private industries and public industries. That's what's been happening all the time, right? So we just have to speed it up. So the great thing is when you come a little bit later to the game in the industries, is like that you don't have to make all of the mistakes again. Like there's a certain way, especially in Europe, how we do it. And boy, in Germany, don't we like to follow rules? So what does that mean? It means that we are going towards a future where, for us as designers, made in, made with, made for will finally be on the core. Where it has to be digital, tracked and traced. For sustainability, for prosperity, for strategic autonomy. Where the makers, the manufacturing are actually the ones, the heroes of the creation, where we truly can take responsibility for our designs. It's not necessarily the current fashion industry who will do that, but it will definitely be a fashion industry who will do that, because the opportunities are simply endless. Excellent. Thank you very much.